Hey folks, we are live now and we will be starting our session with Santosh Yadav, who is a Google developer expert in Angular. He will be taking a session on Angular. I'll let him have the stage.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining on Saturday. Sunday. And I'll be like giving a very brief introduction about Angular. I'll show you some code as well, like how you can get started. Before and we'll see some slides. Of course, I'm sure I'll make sure that I'm not like taking too much time for the slides, so we can jump into the code and see like how can we can get started. So I hope you're able to see my screen now. Let me just move this on the other screen. Yeah. So uh, little bit a small introduction about myself. So my name is Santosh, and I'm a senior software engineer at Celonis, which is a company in Germany. And I'm a Google developer expert, a GitHub star, and I'm also a co-founder of a community called This Is Learning. And we are doing our first conference. So it's a virtual conference, and you can go to tlconf.netlify.app. I'll just share it in chat. I think I'm not able to share it in here, so I'll just post it in private chat. Hope someone can share it in the comments. So you can also register. We already have speakers from Microsoft and other industries. Like there are people with more than 10 years of experience. There are great content creators who will be speaking at the conference, and we'll be announcing more speakers next week. So go ahead and register. This is 2 days virtual conference, so you can register and join the session, whichever you like. And this will be multi-track conference, so it's not like you have to just watch web-related content. We have AI, ML, data, AI, ML, cloud, and yeah, some amazing content, and as well as the career-related talks as well. So you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm also on GitHub with this user handle Santosh Yadav Dev. And you can also find me on YouTube with my channel called Tech Talks with Santosh. There are some videos as well. And we also do a podcast which is called This is Tech Talks. So you can also see, in case you're into podcast, you can also go through our This is Tech Talks channel, which has close to 8,000 subscribers. And we have great contents like from contributor of Node.js, uh, like Tejas, who is a React developer and a developer advocate. And we also have interview with Ryan Carniato from Solid.js team. So go ahead and check this out. This is I'll just share the link. So this is our another channel. Yeah. And I think my social media handles are available in description as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So like Angular is actually built like keeping productivity in mind. I mean, most of the frameworks actually becomes unmaintainable, or you can say it becomes more complicated once it grows, right? But Angular is from day one they thought about like what in case your application grows. It's okay. I mean, medium to small applications are something which is easy to maintain, whatever technology you use. But what in case it grows? It grows more than 100, 200K lines of code. I mean, to give you an idea, we have at Celonis, we have an Angular application. I mean, we have number of our Angular applications. Actually, we use a monorepo. So we have like 2 billion lines of code. So at this scale, I mean, it becomes more unmanageable or unmaintainable. But this is where Angular really shines. So it's for small, medium, and big applications as well. Over the years, like there are many changes which has been introduced in Angular to make Angular framework more, what you can say, more easy to understand as well as more easy to learn. So in this, I would say, yeah, in this stream, I will show you like the latest version of Angular, which is 17, and we will go through some changes which have been made, like how you can get started, how you can create your first component, and everything. I hope like I mean just to see in comment section how many of you already have worked on any other framework, any Angular developers there. I mean, or any front-end developers who have used any other technology, just yeah, yes or no, that would be sufficient. Meanwhile, we can move ahead. So for prerequisite for this learning Angular, you have Node.js. You can choose like whatever editor you like. I'll be using VS Code, and you need to learn TypeScript. So in this stream, of course, I'm not going to go through the TypeScript, but there is a course available on YouTube. So which is Angular getting started. This is the course which I published a year ago, and this uh, I mean it's like 17 hours course, and so it was on Angular 13. But in case you want to start learning somewhere, yeah, this is like a good resource. You like initial 3 hours, it actually covers. Yeah, so initial 3 hours actually covers TypeScript as well. So if you just want to learn TypeScript, that's something which you can do from this video as well. And to save this time, I mean, so this is a new logo of Angular. In case you are wondering, like there used to be another logo and you might have seen that everywhere, but now this is changed. So this is new Angular logo, and the documentation for Angular is also changed. So it's called angular.dev. So this is new home. Of course, it's beta, but this is new home for Angular docs. So in case you want to start or you want to revisit Angular after this session, you can go here. So you can see like 16, and I think this is, I don't know why this is V0, but you can go through the different versions. Probably V0 because this is the new version which is available with this docs. And I just share this link, so just in case. So, as I said, like I will not go through slides much. So let's go ahead and get started with our application, right? So to save some time, because in generally installation setup and everything takes time, I'm sure most of you already have Node.js installed. You already are using some editor, and you uh, like have this, like how to install the CLI. So to create a new application using Angular, the first command which you have to run is this. So you can actually, I'm sure you can see this. Yeah. So let me just zoom in a little bit to make sure that this is visible. And so to create a new application using Angular, you can use the Angular CLI. So you can do, and you can use also npx. So let's say if you want to use the new or latest version of Angular CLI, you can just say like this. So npx at the rate Angular CLI at the latest and app name. You can also do CLI at the rate next, which will install the beta version. So generally, beta version is something which is not fit for production. It's like, yeah, the team is still doing some releases. So that's why the next version exists in just mostly used for testing purposes. So yeah, you can go ahead and create your first app. And I've created this app before I started this. And let's go ahead and first talk about the application structure, right? So because you need to understand like what are the important files which you have, and then we can start making changes. Uh, and we can see here. So the first three files which you see here are actually TypeScript configuration file. So this spec.json file is used for all the unit test. Angular uses Karma for unit testing, and then tsconfig.json is like your base configuration, which will be applicable for your application as well as unit test. And app is of course stands for application. So this is something which will be applied for all the TypeScript code, which is part of your application. So these are three initial files. And then you have server.ts file because Angular supports server-side rendering as well. So let's say if someone is running this new command, new application command, there will be a question asked like, do you want to really have server-side rendering enabled? I mean, if you say yes, you will get this file. If you say no, you will not get this file. But yeah, use it because this is server-side rendering is something which is used, which is like enabled by most of the frameworks which you might be using. For example, Next, Remix, or Next, they all use SSR. So this is just a configuration or just a code to run your code on the server side. And package.json, of course, we know that all the packages are installed here. You can see which version of Angular we are using. So it's like 17.3.0 right now. And 18 is like will be released soon because we already reached the 18 beta. And then log file, of course, is generated by npm. You don't have to worry about it. The important file to understand when using Angular is angular.json. Generally, this file contains information about your workspace. So whatever code you have inside your Angular will the metadata of that code will be available here. For example, Angular supports adding multiple applications, multiple libraries inside the same workspace. It basically supports monorepo from like years ago. I mean, it started supporting it since version 6, which was around 2017 or yeah 2018. And let me show you what exists here. So for example, this is our first project. So this is my project name, Angular with Alex, because I was doing some live streams, so I created this application. And then it tells you like what kind of application or what kind of project this this application is. So it says it's application, but it can be a library. You can also add a library, which we are not going to cover. But and then it tells you like what kind of styling you are going to use for this application. I'm using SAS. And then the other important things to understand is this architect options, which are actually nothing but different tasks which you can run for this application. So you can build your application, you can serve your application, you can run tests on your application, you can also run extract I18N, which is nothing but for use for translation. So once we know the options, we can actually go ahead and serve our application, because if you pick up any like any framework or any technology, what is the first thing you do? You write the code and or you generate the template and then you run the application on your local machine. And that's what you can do using Serve. But this also option is already available here. So you can see npm start. If I do npm start, it will do ngserve. So let's do that and see like what is there on my default template when we run this application. So, okay, Google Analytics, I'll say, okay, uh, hey, Pratik. Hey, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name or Oindirila. Yeah. Or you're just using your yeah makeup name, made up name, probably. So cool. So this is the template, default template, which is available with Angular, and you can see there are some links. You can explore the docs. You can go to the tutorials. You can go to CLI docs and everything. And there is a link to X YouTube channel as well as GitHub repository. So in case you haven't given a star, I would recommend just go there and give it a star. I mean, Angular is reaching like close to 100K stars now. And congratulations, we just run your first app. But what is included in this app, right? How it is getting rendered? So I'll just talk a little bit about that. So most of the app which we will be writing, or most of the code which we'll be writing, is inside src folder. And the main file is main.ts. So this main.ts file is responsible for bootstrapping your application. So you can see there is actually a function called bootstrap application, which bootstrap an app component. Now, what is this? And there is some config. So we'll see like both the file, app component and config. Let's first see the config. And there are some bunch of configuration available here. So there is something called provide router, and there is something called client hydration, which is related to server side rendering. And then there is some router file which is available because this is where we can define all the routes. And then there is a configuration for server, which will be again used for server side rendering. So this will be used to provide server side rendering. And uh, let's go back to main.ts now. So whenever you create any front end application, right? So what you do generally, I mean, in case you have used, or if you just have done HTML, right? So what how you create your front end application? You put some HTML tags on your page, and then it works. And for that, you need to have an index.html. So here also, Angular follows the same concept. So index.html is the main page where you will put number of HTML tags. But what are those HTML tags? So you might have heard about like any framework, if you chose to learn, one word you might have heard a lot, that's called component. But what basically a component is? So here in front end, when we talk about the front end, the components are nothing but a custom HTML tag which you create and then you can reuse anywhere you like. So to start with Angular, you need to have one root HTML tag. This is what you define here. So you say, okay, this is my root component, and anything which I put inside this app component will start rendering on my page. How does this happen? Just a yes or no. How many of you know about DOM and probably DOM tree? Just to say yes or no. Meanwhile, I'll come back to that. So whatever you, yeah, as I said, like whatever you start putting inside a component, it's actually start getting rendered on your final uh, browser, right? So this is what you see as an output. So here, if I go back and open app component, so you can see something known as @component, and we are by providing some values, and then there is some code which we will render on your page, right? So you can see if I change this, I'll just say, okay, let's just getting started with Angular. So of course you will see that it's reflected back here. So this is like where you will write the backend code, or you can say the code which will be used to control what we are rendering on the DOM. So if I talk about a component is nothing but an HTML tag, and how you define it in Angular. So you have a component, and then you provide a selector. So selector is the custom HTML tag which I was talking about. Standalone and imports, just forget about it for timing. But to render an HTML tag, it will have some logic and it will have some template, right? Which is an HTML or just an UI. So you can define your UI here in template URL. So you can see whatever is actually rendered on this page is actually available on your HTML. So this is entire HTML. If I can remove and just put title here, and let's go back, and you'll see everything is gone. There will be just getting started with Angular tag or text. Okay, so we got like where we are writing our UI code. We also have style URL. So this is where you can apply some style. For example, let's say if I wrap this into an H1, now let's do div, right? Generally, this is what we use. And let's put stack here. And let's apply some styling. So I can go to this and say, okay, on div, just apply a color red, which is more visible, right? Not this, but and let's see. And you will see, okay, getting started is with Angular, and this is red now. And okay, so we got like, okay, where we'll be writing template and we'll be writing cellular, but I said, okay, we will come back to these properties. So to get started with, let's go ahead and create our own component. Okay, that's the best way to learn. And how to do that? So Angular has Angular CLI, which has uh, the command which I showed you at the rate Angular slash CLI. You can install it globally, and then you can use it to generate all this code. So you don't have to do it manually. If you are using Angular, you can just, for let's say generating a component, I can say ng generate C, and let's create a component called employee, and it will create all the files required, right, for you to go ahead and use it. And now let's go ahead and see what is the content. So you can see, okay, this is similar structure, and you have selected as app employee. Why we have this app everywhere? I mean, even it was app component, app root here, and now it's app employee here. So what is the meaning of this? So Angular like ask you to actually use some prefix, because it should not conflict with any other existing HTML tag. So it's actually something which is common to all the frameworks, that you should not have an component which matches the HTML tag with existing HTML tag. In future, this can be deprecated, or this can be just made optional. But where you define this, so it's actually available in your angular.json. You will see something called prefix, and which has property called app. If I change this to something else, it will just start using this as a prefix. So just to tell you, like, just generally you should set it to maybe your organization name. For example, at Solonis we use CL, or let's say if you are doing some specific project, you can just choose that as your prefix. Just keep it short. I mean, it should not be a big name. Uh, so um, yeah. And then why we have standalone true? What is the purpose of this? So this is actually to make the new code which we write backward compatible with the old code we have. So what is the purpose of having standalone? I mean, okay, I just told you that this is for backward compatibility. So Angular 14 and below. I mean, with Angular 15, there was something known as standalone component which was introduced with Angular 14 basically, but it was development preview or dev preview, and 15 it became stable. So before Angular 14 and below, we used to create a component with module. So there was another extra file which was needed to make this component work. But that was an overhead. And to avoid that, Angular team added this flag. But this is a default now, and in future this will be removed, and then your component will just look like this, or even more simpler. I mean, Angular team is experimenting with multiple ways to write component. And imports is something where let's see. I will see an example soon. So now we know the purpose of standalone is just there just for compatibility purpose. It's default now, so you don't have to worry about it. But just in case you are like writing in code, or you are going through a code base which is older, it may have extra file called module, or like app.module.ts or employee.module.ts. So just be aware of that. So let's start using this tag, which we just created, app employee, into our root component, right? So here, so let's say if I want to render this component here, what I can do. So this is generally what we do, right? So this is what we do. We just add HTML tag and then it should be rendered. But there is an error. You can see this wiki line, and it says app employee is not known element. Now, how to fix this? So to use this component, employee component, into app component, we have to let app component know that what employee component is. And the way to do that is to register them into imports array. So I can add my employee component here. Okay. And now if you see, this error is gone. And let's serve this application to see if we see this app employee tag on our UI. And let's save this again. I think it's not saved. So SP's water pipes. I think I can share a link, SB, or we can discuss about on. Uh, I don't think so. I mean, this will. I'll just try to keep it short. So there is a question like, are we going to cover life cycle hooks? I mean, that will be too much. But you can go through the video, go through the Angular course which I have posted. It's like 17 hours. It covers everything. So even life cycle hooks, though they have changed a little bit. So here you can see that employee works app employee component is actually rendered here, right? Angular also supports closing self-closing tag, so I can just do this and it should still work. And this is what I was talking about, your DOM structure, right? So this is your DOM, and your browser needs to know about your DOM tree, so to render everything. So you can see app root, which has child as app employee, and so onwards, right? I mean, I can just put another component inside app employee and it will still render. So we created a new component. Now we know like how to render that component, but generally we use routing. I mean, I'm sure most of you are aware of routing and how to, let's see how to configure it, right? So what I will do is I will create a new component. I'll say, okay, this is NGC and it's product. So as we just have 1 hour, but if you have more things, I mean, you can always ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter, wherever you are available, and I can share you or more yeah, more details about it. So let's see. We will do routing. It's like we'll see how to configure a routing for your Angular applications. So I'm sure most of you know the routing, right? It's available in most of the technology which you go through. Even like if you're doing backend, you also define some routes. For example, if you're just writing API, you probably do API slash product, API slash employee. Those are even that a route which exists on server. This is the route which will exist on your client side. So to configure a routing, you have to use this approute.ts, which is actually passed to uh, this file, which is appconfig. So provide router, whatever routes you provide here will be registered as your route for your front end application. So let's define one. So I'll say, okay, there are a few properties which is required. So the first property which I'll be using is path, and then we'll say, okay, this path is product. So basically, we are registering a route on front end called product. And once we actually access this product, what should happen is it should open something known as product component because that's the component we created. Let's save this and let's set up our routing. The first thing which we need is something known as router outlet, which is already registered. And then we can say router link, which is used for like providing anchor tags. And that's it. So now we are, and then we need one more thing, which is known as router outlet. So I'll tell you what router outlet is, but let's put an anchor tag as well. So I'll say, okay, this is an anchor tag, and we don't use href here because if you add href, it will just refresh your page. We don't want that behavior to be like that behavior. So I can say router link, and then we can pass which route to navigate to. So let's say, okay, navigate to product, and then we can just say this is product. I mean, as a text. Does Angular directly interact with the native application or overlays on top of it? What do you mean by native application, Riyansh? Do you want to create an like mobile app or something? So let's see. Let's run this application again now. Let's refresh this page. So you should see an anchor link, and yeah, let's see. And just close this files. Yeah, and click on product, and you can see the product works. So this is big, and you can also see the route has changed, right? So now we are redirected to product. So whatever you put on app component.html is it becomes your like outer layer, and then whatever routes you change, it is actually rendered inside router outlet. So what is the purpose of router outlet? Angular always checks if whenever you do navigation, it will always check if there is a router outlet which is available. If this router outlet is not available, so you see, if this router outlet is not available, it will not render anything because Angular router, what it does is just find the router outlet and append your new component after the outlet is available. So that's why you see this after outlet. Uh, so this is one thing. But you can also do lazy loading using routing. So let's see how to do that and what lazy loading is. So generally, when you serve your application, right? So you serve a bunch of JavaScript code basically. So if I see this in network tab, so these are like all the files which are actually served when you run your application, which contains all the code. So if I open this main.js, it actually contains all the code. You can see product component here, and it will also have code about employee, and every component which you write. What in case my users are not actually going to use product frequently? So what you can do is you can actually slice this code out and put it in another file. So when user interacts with this code, they will be downloaded. So let's go ahead and see like how we can do that. That's called lazy loading. So I can comment this out. In that case, I'll just also remove this and use something called as load component. So I can say load component, and then I can use the dynamic import, right? And then provide the path to the file. So I can say, okay, what I want is product, and then product component. And once you find this file, then go ahead and access product component. And now let's run this. What will happen is here, I mean, you can also see this change here as well on your build. So if you notice, there is a lazy chunk file which is created for your product component. And now let's go back to your browser, and I'll just go to localhost 4200. So we don't have the product code available so far. And I'll just disable the breakpoints, and let's go back to the network tab, and let's clear this and click on product. Oh, sorry, network. Click on product, and you see this chunk or this part of the code is actually downloaded when we interacted with it. So this is what the lazy loading is. So now we know about routing, we know about lazy loading, we know about a little bit about the component. Let's talk about the next stuff. So I'll just stop this application. Now, next thing which we want to talk about is rendering. So what your front end applications do, you throw some bunch of HTML tags and then it gets rendered at the end. This is what they do. Most, I mean, every component or every framework out there does exactly the same thing. Some already know the HTML, some like compiles your HTML and then renders it. So in Angular, you have, let's say, a property. I'll say this is product name, right? So I want to render this product name property. I'll say this is and plus 12. Okay, so I want to render this product name on your front end. So what you can do is you can just go ahead and use interpolation syntax. You can just do this product name and that's it. And it will be rendered on your screen. So um, product works, and then you should have product name here. For this, we need to run the application. Sorry, I forgot about it. And it should render the product name because we are already on product. So we can see, yeah, 1 plus 12. Okay, I made a typo, but you can see the product name which we entered here is actually available on your UI. So how it works? So Angular actually have some mechanism called change detection, where it actually like detects the changes on your UI and then reflects back or detect the changes whatever you make on your TypeScript code, and then it recompiles it and displays it on your UI. So the basic for all the basic data types, for example, string, number, or Boolean, you can just use this curly brackets and then put your variable name and it will be rendered. But there are some other ways which you may want to do. For example, let's say what in case you have a list, like what you should do there. So for example, let's create a list, right? So I'll just create an interface where we will define product list, and this interface will have few properties. For example, ID. Let me just enable. I don't know why my Copilot is not working. Oh, I have disabled it. Just a second. Let me see. Okay, let's do this. Basically, it will help me to code faster so I can show more things, basically. So whenever you are doing you're writing Angular code, you also should install another extension which is called Angular Language Service, which actually gives you intelligence in for all the Angular code you have. So let's see. I mean, I'll create ID, which is number, and then I'll create a product name or product list. So it should be named, and we'll say okay, this is string, and what else we can have price. And so I think this are enough information, and this can be number as well. Okay, so we create an interface, and then we can say okay, this uh, product list, a new property, which is nothing but product list array, and then we can define all the products. So I'll say okay, ID, which is okay. I don't know what my name is, and then surprise, and then I can just say copy paste. So I think two records are enough for now. So iPhone. Okay, so now we have an array. Like how to render this array? If I try to do this, try to just render product list. Let's see what happens. And it says okay, this is something known as object because it's an array, right? You cannot just go ahead and simply display this. So how to render this? So I'll talk about some uh, uh, inbuilt ways to actually to help you with the rendering. For example, in case you want to do conditional rendering or you want to go through the list, how you should do it. So let's see first the prod list, right? So it's an array. So to do to like render an array, you can use for at the rate for. So this is something which is built into the framework, into the Angular framework, and you can just say okay for each product in product list tracked by so I can say product. So it has to be like unique ID. Sorry. So we can say for each product dot ID. So this is my unique key, and then you can display okay, this is div, and I can say this is product. You can use table or whatever you feel comfortable with. Product ID and then product name and yeah. So and it will be rendered here now. So let's see. Right? So you have one plus 11, and then ID2 and one iPhone. Of course, you can also display price. You can also do conditional rendering. For example, let's say if I want to say if uh, yeah, let's say before this, so I can say if prod list dot length is greater than equals to 0, then only run this for loop, right? And in case it is not, I can do else and say uh, let's say div no products available. And as of now, of course, we will see the product, right? So if I render or just right click here, you will see all the divs are available, like our product, and then you have all the divs available. But let's make our product empty, right? So I'll say, okay, this is an empty array. There is no product, and we should now get like no product available. So we have if this, else no products available. Why it's not working? Let's see. So we got app product 1 plus 12 and okay, so let's debug a little bit. and let's enter broad list dot length. So we know like what is the length, probably it's 0. So if you see, I just write it like greater than equals to 0. So now you see no products available. So this is how you can do conditional rendering. You don't have too much. You just need to use at the rate if or at the rate for, at the rate else, and then you are good to go. And now there is a new concept which is coming in most of the frameworks, which is known as signals, right? So signals are something which are lazy by nature, which actually calculates or which actually throws gives you a value when you ask for it. So what do you mean by that? So to take an example, we will do a component communication where we use signals. Okay, so let's start with converting this product list to a signal. So I'll just put the values back and wrap it up with the new primitive or the new primitive which is available now with Angular called signals. So I can say, okay, this is signal of product value. Okay, so this is type signal and this should be imported. I'm not sure why it's not okay because of this. And you can import it from Angular core and see, okay, so what is this issue? Mhm. Okay, I can just simply drop this and say, okay, this is signal of this values and um, what, what, what am I doing? So signal of because of this, right? And then I can wrap it up and say, okay, this is signal of like array of values, signal is right, but being used as a value. Okay, I did something wrong. Let's check. So uh current value, okay, signal. Okay, I made something wrong. What I okay, let's do again. So I'll say, okay, this is signal uh, of type product list in array equals to hmm, interesting. So product list array, and then we can do product list. And see, let's go to angular.dev and search for it. Yeah. So up with signal in small. Okay, so I was just using the wrong type. So okay, this is signal. Okay, so this signal is actually a type which is available with the Angular, right? So you can just note this Angular signal and same is here, and then I can define all the values. And it's actually don't we don't need to do this uh, treat it as a value. Okay, and then signal of product type, and then we can say okay, this is product list, right? So I can pass my entire product list here. Let's create a product list. You can say products, right? So basically, list of products which we had created earlier, and I can say this is an type because we are on strict mode. We are using TypeScript strict mode. So we have to define all the types. It cannot be any. And let's pass ID, brand, name, maybe t-shirt, and then let's pass the third property, which was price, and we can see 500. And let's copy paste and change this. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable, just watch the recording after this, and then you can also do it on your own. And I'll say this is change. Okay, so we got two values. Now let's pass this as the value to our signal, right? So cannot find products. So you mean, yeah, because this should be this not products. And now we have this property defined as a signal. So signals are new concept which is getting popular in all the frameworks which we have. So even signals are going to be part of JavaScript specification. So that's already something which is in progress. Angular team is also helping to make this part of JavaScript. So signals are basically future for every other framework. I mean, it's not just it's only not being implemented by React, but all other frameworks are using it to render this now. So of course, the signals, as I said, are lazy. So if I just do prod list, you can see there are some bunch of errors which we can go through. So it says, okay, type must have a symbol iterator. I mean, I'm sure like you must be wondering what is this because this is a new error. But you can see here. So it says it's a function and should be invoked as product list function because signals, as I said, are lazy by nature. So in case you want to read it, you have to read it as a function, and then it will like it will open that particular object and displays this to you. Same here. So I have to say, okay, product list dot length, and here as well product list as a function. And now the code should compile, and you will be able to see the same output which we had earlier. But what is the advantage of using signals and uh, how it differs from the old way? So in Angular, like to reflect all the values which we have, or for example, this product list, right? Whenever this value changes, Angular has to go ahead and run something known as change direction. Now that change direction process can be a little bit costly because it goes ahead and checks from your top to bottom that what has changed and update these values. Remember, this check is pretty fast. But as soon as your DOM tree like grows and then you have a lot of elements on your UI, it will start lagging. I mean, there are times you will see like just blank screen for some time for a few seconds. And I'm sure like if you are working on front end, you might have seen this behavior that if you are like back end call or if you have some heavy computation, it actually renders the blank screens, right? So to avoid those issues, signals, what can they do? They actually speed up your change detection process because it's the signals will, as we said, it's lazy, so it will just be tied up with your particular component or particular DOM element. I can say, for example, if I'm talking about product, so whatever changes which we'll make on the product itself will be changed and updated. Basically, how does Angular does it? I mean, that's a little bit advanced concept. So there are some blogs available. You can go through it, or just ping me in case you are interested to learn more about signals. I will throw some content to you, and then you can go through it. But just right now, just try to understand everything is going to be signaled in future. Now, so we know like how to do this, and next thing which we will learn about, we still have 10 minutes to go. So the last concept we shall talk about is something known as component communication. We'll see how you can pass values to your child component and you can receive the values from your component. So to do that, let's take an example of employee and we'll define some properties here. So just to understand what the parent-child component communication means. So I'm sure you all know HTML, right? You don't have to aware of this concept, but you all know HTML. So let's say if I am using a div tag, right? And I want to pass some value to some property of div, for example, in a text, right? So we in a text file in a HTML. So we do something like this. In JavaScript, we can say, okay, div dot get whatever the div ID is, dot get element by ID, and then dot inner text and apply the values. What in case this component is my custom component? As we said, the component which we create are nothing but dynamic or dynamic HTML tags. So we should be able to do something similar here. Yes, we can. Let's see how we do that. So the first thing which we have to do is we have to define a property, input property on the reusable component which we have. So I'll say, okay, let's define a property in name, and I'll say, okay, this is input. So this becomes available on my HTML tag. Let's see how. So I'll just render this employee name here for the time being, and we know like we have to call it as a function to unwrap the value. And now on my parent component where we have app employee, I can say, hey, let me pass the employee name from here. And this employee name is going to be, let's say, Virat, right? IPL is going on, so everyone might be watching this. And now uh, let's see. I hope we don't have any error. So yeah, we don't have any error, but you can see the Virat is like, rendered here. And this is how you can pass the value to a child component. It can be a list, it can be anything, right? And now let's go back and see like how you can pass value back to the parent component. To do that, of course, you have to do opposite, right? So if you have input to get the value, you have to do output to send the value back. So I'll say, okay, send alert, right? So I can say send alert, which is an output. And we have to define like what kind of output this would be. So if I just do this, this will be a type void. It means I'm not able to send anything. But let's say if I want to send a string, I can do something like this. And let's put a button here, simple button. And on click, I will say send. Let's see. I can just cannot name it like this. So I can say release alert and then say send alert. Right. So now we will implement this function. So we'll say, okay, raise alert, and then we can say this is uh, this dot send alert dot emit, and we can say help. Right. So we are just sending an alert back to our parent component. And remember, this input and output, they are signals by default. So because Angular is moving towards and wants you to utilize or start using signals. So they have made these changes to input and outputs primitive or the functions, and or we can say properties basically, and they are signals by default. You can also make them required. So let's say I can say, okay, this input dot required, and it becomes mandatory parameter as well. So let's go ahead and now start using or start receiving this alert on your front end. So I can say, okay, here send alert, and I'll say this is receive alert. And you have to define something known as event here. And let's write the code on TypeScript. I'll say receive alert, which is the alert is type of string. So I'll say this is message. This is just a variable, which is type of string. And then I can say, hey, let's just use alert, right, which is available in browser. And we can say message. I'll also show you like how you can debug your application. So send alert, and then you have like alert available here. So last part of this, let's see how you can debug your application, right? For example, you can go to sources, and you will be able to see the entire code which you have written. Basically, if you know your browser doesn't understand TypeScript, they just understand TypeScript, but you have to debug TypeScript. So this is where it comes handy. You can see there's something known as localhost 4200, which just comes from here, and then you have all the folder structure available here, and you can go to any file, just add alert here. Sorry, a breakpoint here. Let's add a breakpoint here, and let's do some action. And you can see now you have like a breakpoint here and breakpoint here. You can just debug it, whatever you want to do. And yeah, So this is how you can also debug your code. This is like getting started. As I said, like there are a lot of things to learn. I mean, I have a course of 17 hours. Probably I'll do a follow-up course soon, which covers Angular 16 and Angular 17. So you can learn more about it. But this is it for today. I mean, in case you have more questions or you have been already working on Angular, you already know this stuff. So just send me a DM and ask like whatever question you have. But I'm giving, I think we have 5 minutes. In case you have any more question, you can ask, and then we will wrap up. So I'll just stop sharing. And so if you have any questions, please do ask. And if there are no questions, and we can probably end for the day. And if you feel like if you're not comfortable asking here, please send me a message and we can talk about it. I know there was question about pipes. Speak. So pipes are nothing but, let's say you have some common logic which you want to call on many different applications. For example, pipes are generally transforms basically. So let's a simple example can be currency, right? So let's say if you want to change your currency based on your uh, input values, so that's where you can actually apply some pipes. But with the introduction of signals, pipes are not that useful. You can actually use computation signals, which is which is again probably take some time. In case, let's see if I can explain. You already have a signal property here, right? So I can say uh, name with title, computed property. And then I can say, okay, what I want to do here is, let's say Mr. This name, and then I can use this name with title. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share it again so I can just quickly tell you about computed signals, which is going to probably, in case you are using computed signals, you don't have to use pipes anymore. So let's say if I want to transform this value, right? So the name, I'm not sure if you're able to see this, what I'm sharing the screen, entire screen. Oh, somehow I'm not able to show you what is happening here. Is there anyone who can help? I'm not able to add this to, or I'm not able to share my screen. Mhm. So, okay. Adhisha, are you there? I mean, can you add my screen back? Because I think I'm not able to do it. Interesting. Okay. Anyways, like I think no one is there anymore. So, but I can share you the code which I have just written probably. Yeah, and even I cannot do that. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you can send me like more questions on the chat and we can just talk about it. So thank you for joining for the day, and probably let's enjoy your Sunday, and yeah, keep in touch. Thank you. Bye bye.